Hi guys. Sorry, I had to retry this live streaming crap that they're doing on this websites and stuff. This is like a video we're gonna be trying to do. We're gonna be like reacting to 14 more horror stories animated. It's a compilation of from 2016, but it will it's all of the Lomarts animating Mr. Nightmare's videos, stories, and all that. I did like a video. If you go to my channel and all that, you'll see I did a couple reactions, but I used a specific thing I'm using right now to do this live stream. Well, I'm going to try to test this out to see if this works well. So, before we get into the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, smash that notification bell to always be notified of any videos we upload to the channel. Anyways, the original link to the video will be in the description down below of this live stream video we're doing. First time I'm doing this, it would probably get used to thing. Other than that, let's try to get this started.
I was out doing a delivery one late night. It was probably the longest drive I have ever taken for a pizza delivery. From the pizza place I worked at, it was a 20-minute drive, which isn't too crazy out where I live. Plus, they ordered 4 large pies, so I figured it was a party and I would get a much bigger tip.
That's not bad.
Navigating the dirt roads at night was always annoying, though. I pulled up to the given address. It was some old, sketchy-looking building, literally in the middle of a forest clearing. There were no cars parked anywhere, or any lights on. I put my car in park and called my boss. I asked him to reread the address at least 3 times to make sure I typed it in right, but that checked out. I could tell he was in a really bitchy mood, and he told me to at least knock on the door and check it out. He would normally get mad if we took back 1 pie, but I was afraid of what he would do if I brought back 4. I was insanely unnerved, but got out anyway and forced myself to the front door of the building. There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard. I heard nothing and didn't really expect to hear anything. I was extremely disappointed, not because nobody answered the door, but because I was realizing that it was all a waste of time and gas. I knocked one more time out of desperation, and then began to hear some kind of rustling noises from inside of the building.
That's a little creepy, I must say.
I knocked again and yelled that I was the pizza guy. There was silence now. I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than before. But before I could turn around, I noticed something at the window.
What?
There was someone looking through the window. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All I noticed were their eyes. Their eyes were open wider than I knew possible, staring intently at me.
Yeah, that's creepy as hell.
I was disturbed enough by this
There's
and
no
dropped the
explicit way of
pizzas and
showing
ran back
that.
to my car. The shitty thing wouldn't start until turning the key for the 3rd time. I drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road, but I felt the car rocking about, shaking and bumping. Something wasn't right. I didn't make it far from the building before I started hearing a sharp scraping sound coming from outside. There was
That's
so
not
much
good at
resistance
all.
that I couldn't even
That
drive.
is not good
The
whatsoever.
car came to a stop.
Ever.
I got out of the car to check what the hell was wrong.
No in my book.
A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel like my heart was constantly skipping beats.
Why?
My tires had been slashed and had
hell
completely
to the
fallen
no.
off the
That's
rim. Not just the front though. All 4 tires were slashed. I realized somebody did this when I was knocking on the door to that building.
You're just basically...
Instead of running, I got back in the car and locked the doors.
Oh.
I was so close to that building, I could
Damn.
practically see it from where I was, if it weren't for the trees blocking the view. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. She told me the cops would be over as soon as possible and that I need to stay hidden. I asked her if it was advisable to stay in the car or run,
I
and
would
she
say
told
stay
me
in the
it
car.
would be best to
Be
stay
the
in the
best
car with
choice.
the door locked. She asked me to stay on the line with her until the cops arrived. My whole body was shaking. In all directions, there was nothing but dark, seemingly endless forest. I knew it would take forever for the cops to get there. I was not comfortable with sitting in that car so close to whoever did this. The next part, though, is what utterly destroyed me. It still shakes me to this day, and I hope nobody ever has to experience this kind of fear. As I was scanning all the windows, making sure nobody was outside, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was the same person I saw at that window. Eyes open wider than ever. I could see now that it was a woman, and I could ever so slightly see a smile begin to spread across her face. I opened my door and full-on sprinted into the woods, not caring how much noise I made. I ran until I was out of breath, which didn't take long, and I hid behind a giant log on the ground.
That's
I
as
tried to
creepy
cover
as
my
can
loud
be.
breathing with my hand as I waited and waited for what felt like hours, until I finally heard sirens in the distance. I gathered up all the stamina I had left to run all the way back in the direction of the dirt road. Eventually, the glowing red and blue lights came into view, and I had never felt better in my life. They were parked in front of my car, investigating with flashlights. I came out yelling at them like a lunatic to help me. I fell to the floor and started to gag, almost throwing up from running so much. They picked me up and began to question me, to which I explained everything to the best of my ability. One of the two cars drove over to the building, and the two officers began to search the building. They came back with nothing except for a couple of spiky objects. These objects were exactly the same as the ones used to slash my tires. The cops guessed that it was some kind of sick, demented couple, being that I saw the woman, but unfortunately they were never found, and that still kills me to this day. I obviously quit my job right after that and started working at a local grocery store. I know that I'll never forget seeing that woman at the back of my car. I recently moved out, and I already have a horror story to tell. The house I moved into isn't anything impressive. It's just a house that's appropriate for one or two people. But I'd say right away, I started hearing weird sounds coming from inside the walls. I first heard it in the kitchen, and then in the bathroom, but on night 3, I started hearing it in my bedroom. I was sure there was some kind of animal living in my walls. I just had to figure out how to get rid of it. The next morning, I didn't even have enough milk to fill the bowl of cereal. I couldn't believe I hadn't realized I needed more milk. In fact, I seemed to be eating up all of my food pretty fast. I woke up in the middle of that night to the sound of breathing. Not my breathing. It sounded just like the breathing of a person. I flipped the lamp on and it stopped. I chalked it up as my mind playing tricks on me after waking up. The next day was really hot, so I turned on the AC for the first time. I checked every single vent, and some of them weren't blowing any air. One of them being the vent right next to my bed. I peered through the vent with a flashlight. There wasn't even a duct behind the vent. It was just the inside of the wall. It seemed that whatever air duct was in there had been removed. Unfortunately, I didn't look into the air conditioning system while buying the house, so I didn't know about this. That night, I had to sleep in the heat with no AC, so I was up pretty late, constantly rolling around and flipping the pillow over. Then I eventually started to hear the breathing again, but this time I was fully awake. I knew it was real this time. It was coming to my left. I looked to my left at the air vents. The sound was surely coming from in there. I grabbed the flashlight again and shined it in through the vent. I dropped it and screamed. There was someone's face peering through the cracks of the vents. The first thing I saw were their eyes, open wide and glowing. I screamed all the way down and out the house. I soon found out there was a crazy, dangerous homeless man living in my walls, and he had been eating my food ever since I moved in. I was doing some night hog hunting in the woods near my backyard. I was hiding in the tower I had built about a decade ago. In case anyone's wondering, I of course had a night vision scope attachment. I guess I'm what you would consider a hardcore hunter. I don't want to bore you with the unnecessary story prolonging details, so I'll make this short. And I want everyone to know that though I agree this story sounds far-fetched and crazy, it is nothing but the truth. And I, in a way, actually consider myself lucky that I'll always have such a horrifying story to share. So, while I was sitting in the tower waiting for movement, it finally came. I took aim and found the source. But it wasn't at all a hog, or any kind of animal I was expecting. It was a person, a man wearing all black. Black sweatpants, black shoes, and a black hoodie with the hood over his head. But that wasn't the freakiest part. He was dragging a sack behind him. My heart started racing. I was pretty sure I was witnessing this guy trying to bury a body.
That wouldn't be that far from the truth.
I continued to watch him, but then he slowed down, and I swear to God, it looked as if he turned his head up to me. I ducked down under the wooden walls of the tower, shaking in my boots. Yes, I had a gun. But just the idea of using it against a person is horrifying.
I'm confused on how that's
horrifying.
horrifying.
I lay low, praying to God that he hadn't seen me.
It protects you.
It wouldn't make sense if he could, though. It's practically pitch black out here. Or at least, that was my logic. Seconds felt like an eternity as I waited for the footsteps in the leaves to move elsewhere, but I didn't hear any footsteps. All I heard was the sound of a foot hitting one of the wooden planks on the ladder of the tower. I felt the entire tower vibrate and shake as there were 2 more steps moving up the ladder. At this point, I was asking myself deep down, am I going to be able to shoot someone?
Yes.
But for some reason, whoever was down there decided not to climb all the way up, as I heard them jump back down to the forest ground and began dragging the sack away.
Like they're about to attack.
I think I stayed frozen like a statue for at least 10 minutes before even peeking over the ledge again.
Because
the coast seemed clear. I had to get home and warn the police immediately. I hopped over the ledge and descended down the ladder. I turned on my pocket flashlight, which in hindsight was a stupid move considering the situation, and ran back in the direction of my house. I was only able to run for about 10 seconds or so when I heard the rapid, manic footsteps crunching the leaves from behind me. I took a look over my shoulder, and there he was, inches away from my face. I spun around and shot him in the shoulder.
Yes, you did
the right thing. He stopped and screamed in agony, and I took that moment to finish my dash to my house. Again, in hindsight, I should have held him hostage somehow, but that doesn't even matter now.
A lot of times.
I called the police, who showed up within 15 minutes with a whole search squad, and I led them all into the woods to the exact location where I shot him. There was a faint yet noticeable blood trail spilled onto the leaves, which led past the body bag, which the cops seized, and eventually right to the maniac, who was hiding under a log next to a tree. He was arrested and tried for the murder of Jin-Quen Sakanaki, a Japanese corner store owner. I don't know the full story behind it, but I do know I won't forget this one for the rest of my life, and I'll also be telling it for the rest of my life.
You got that right. Tell that to everyone.
I'll never forget the time me and my brother snuck out past our bedtimes to explore an allegedly haunted house down the block. Yes, I said bedtime, as I was only 10 and my brother Luke was only 12. When our parents said goodnight to us, I went to Luke's room and we took a couple hand-powered flashlights with us and hopped outside through the window. Luckily, his room was on the first floor. Those hand-powered flashlights worked by constantly pushing in a little trigger that would create light inside the lens. They were noisy as hell, but they were convenient. Once we were outside, we just walked down the block, and in 2 minutes we were there. It was rumored by all the neighborhood kids and teens that the place was haunted. Everything about it was creepy. The older, more antique design of the house, the isolation from the rest of the house.
I mean, just by looking at this, it looks like a place I do not want to be in
It
whatsoever.
seems perfect for a horror movie.
I just
We
don't.
went around to the backyard. This was all my curious and confident brother's idea. I was scared.
Your brother is too confident.
The door was locked, as
Very
expected.
stupid.
I felt a bit of relief, thinking we might just go home. But my brother made a shocking move next. He grabbed a plank of wood laying in the grass and began smashing the already chipped window. Eventually, there was enough of an opening to unlock it and slide it up completely. We hopped inside and began cranking those noisy-ass flashlights. Immediately after entering the house, we both picked up on the fact that it was like 90 degrees in there, which was odd as it was a September night in the mid-70s. There was no graffiti or anything anywhere. In fact, it was relatively empty besides a few pieces of furniture that were clearly not worth taking along.
Okay.
It seemed we were the first to enter the house, shockingly, or at least from the back. We went upstairs to the main floor from the little den area and continued cranking the flashlights. That's when we heard the slightest crack in the floorboards from right above us. We both
The
jumped.
hell?
I tugged for Luke to leave, but he told me the place is old as hell. It's just house noises. I stopped
Yeah,
cranking the
that
flashlight
or
at this
somebody's
point,
up there
and I urged
waiting to
Luke to do the
stab you in the
same,
ass.
but he only called me stupid for suggesting something so ridiculous. Then there was another crack in the floorboards from above us. He began walking upstairs. I didn't want to go up there, but I was not about to stay down there alone. I followed behind him to the upstairs. There was a
See,
door
this
that
whole
led to a
design,
room right
I'm
above
just
where we
saying,
were standing.
this is what the house actually looks
I
like,
begged him not to
which you
open
probably
it,
did.
but he must have just wanted to be
This
the
is
big,
more of a
tough
reason
older
why I
brother.
don't want to go to
He
places
began
like
to reach
this.
for the doorknob while still
I think I made
cranking
it
the noisy
explicitly
flashlight.
obvious. I don't like jump
But then
scares.
he stopped.
Another thing I don't like
I was
is being in
confused.
haunted houses.
I could
like
see in the
that.
dark he was moving his ear up against the door, listening for
I mean, 'cause
something.
that would be the reason why I
Silence.
would not want to do that.
Then, the
It
most
just
deafening,
gives off a
nightmare-inducing
creepy
moment of my life.
Vibe that I
A
don't
single
want to
bang
feel
on the door from the
at
other
all.
side sent my brother staggering into the wall in pain, covering his ear. We dropped the flashlights and ran straight out the back door and back home. We were so loud when we got back that our parents found us out. We told them what happened, but they naturally didn't care and grounded us both for a week. 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of something from outside my window and a glare of brightness sneaking in through my slightly opened blind.
I would hope that's a dream,
I sat up.
because I sure
My heart
wouldn't want
sank
to know
when I
that that was an
realized
actual
It was the
person.
sound of the crank to
up
my
there.
flashlight.
Which
I
either
stood
way,
up
I
and
would have
looked out
already
the
thought it was,
window,
but I would not
and
want
that's
to
when it
know where
stopped.
you live.
There was nothing but complete blackness out there after that. I woke the next day barely remembering what happened, and I still hope today that that part was just a dream.
So would I. Because hell no. I would not want people finding my address after going to places like that. If that was a person, I don't deal with that kind of crap.
This story
Hell
took
to
place
the
a
no.
long time ago, back in 2002, when Craigslist was in its early years. Many wouldn't know